My name is Morgan, and I was 32 years old when I realized that to my family, I was nothing more than a spare part. A resource to be harvested when needed, and ignored when I wasn't. I work as a project manager for a large tech firm in Seattle. It is a job that requires precision, foresight, and the ability to manage disasters before they happen. I am good at it because I have been managing the disaster that is my family for my entire life. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of gray, drizzly day that makes you want to curl up with coffee and ignore the world. I was in the middle of reviewing a budget spreadsheet when my phone buzzed against the mahogany desk. I glanced down. Mom and Dad flashed on the screen. I hesitated. Calls in the middle of the workday were rare, and usually, they meant money trouble. Or car trouble. Or Kayla needs help trouble. I took a deep breath, put on my professional mask, and swiped answer. Morgan. Honey. My mother, Sylvia's voice, was shrill, practically vibrating with excitement. That was my first red flag. Put us on speaker. Your father is here too. I tapped the speaker button and set the phone down. I'm here. Is everything okay? Is Dad's heart acting up again? Acting up? I feel like a 20-year-old. My father, Frank, boomed in the background. He sounded jovial, a tone I hadn't heard directed at me since, well, maybe ever. We have wonderful news, Morgan. Incredible news. Okay, I said, my guard going up. Did you win the lottery? Better. Mom squealed. We found a way to pay for everything. The venue, the flowers, the orchestra. Kayla is going to have the wedding of the century. The Whitmore family won't know what hit them. My stomach tightened. Kayla, my 28-year-old sister, was getting married in 3 weeks to Julian Whitmore. The Whitmores were old money. Real estate money. My parents had been sweating bullets trying to keep up appearances, promising a $150,000 wedding they absolutely could not afford. That's great, I said slowly. How? Did the bank approve the loan? No, forget the bank. Dad laughed. We sold the apartment. The world stopped. The hum of the office air conditioner, the typing of my assistant outside, it all vanished into a vacuum of silence. I'm sorry, I said, my voice barely a whisper. You sold, whose apartment? Yours, silly. Mom said, as if she were telling me they'd sold an old couch I'd left in their basement. We got a cash offer. Full market value. Can you believe it? The buyer, a lovely man named Mr. Henderson, wants to close quickly. The money will be in our account by next Friday, just in time to pay the caterers. I sat there, staring at the rain streaking against my office window. My apartment. My sanctuary. The place I had bought with my own money, saved from 10 years of 60-hour work weeks. The place where I had painted the walls sage green, where I drank my morning coffee in peace, where I felt safe. You can't sell my apartment, I said, trying to keep the tremble out of my voice. It's mine. My name is on the deed. Only my name. Oh, stop being so technical, Morgan, Dad snapped, his jovial tone evaporating instantly. We're a family. What's yours is ours. Besides, we handled the paperwork. You know you're always so busy with work, we didn't want to bother you with the details. Bother me? I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. You sold my home without telling me? Where am I supposed to live? Don't be dramatic, Mom sighed, the way one sighs at a toddler throwing a tantrum. You make good money. You can rent a nice place. Or, move back closer to us. There's a lovely rental complex near the old mall. It's cheap, so you can save up again. Save up again, I repeated. Morgan, listen to me, Dad said, his voice dropping to that authoritative baritone he used to silence me when I was a child. This is for your sister. This is her big day. She's marrying a Whitmore. Do you understand what that means for us? For our reputation? You're the older sister. It's your duty to help. We thought you'd be happy to contribute. Happy to be homeless? I asked, a cold fury starting to replace the shock. You're not homeless, Mom said dismissively. You're resourceful. You always survive. Kayla, she needs this. She's delicate. She can't handle the stress of a budget wedding. You're strong, Morgan. You can handle a little upheaval. There it was. The mantra of my existence. Morgan is strong. Kayla is delicate. Morgan can be broken because she puts herself back together. Kayla must be protected at all costs. I have to go, I said. Wait, we need you to come by this weekend to sign a few final things regarding the transfer of. I hung up. I didn't slam the phone. I just pressed the red button, ending the call. I stood there for a long time, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. They had done it. They had actually done it. They hadn't just crossed a line, they had erased it. I walked over to my computer and pulled up my home security camera feed. My living room looked peaceful. My cat was sleeping on the back of the sofa. Everything looked normal. But it wasn't. My parents hadn't just sold a piece of property. They had sold my safety. And they were laughing about it. I left work early. I couldn't focus on spreadsheets when my entire life was being liquidated behind my back. As I drove through the rainy streets of Seattle, memories began to flood in, uninvited and sharp as glass. This wasn't a new behavior. This was just the climax of a 30-year pattern. I remembered being 10 years old. It was a summer afternoon, and I was climbing the old oak tree in our backyard. I fell, landing hard on my left arm. I heard the snap before I felt the pain. I walked into the kitchen, cradling my arm, tears streaming down my face, white-hot agony radiating from my wrist to my shoulder. Mom was on the couch, brushing Kayla's hair. Kayla was 6. She was watching a cartoon, mesmerized. Mom, I had gasped. I think I broke my arm. Mom glanced at me, then looked back at the TV. Shoo, Morgan. This is Kayla's favorite part. Stop crying, you're fine. Put some ice on it. It really hurts, I sobbed. Don't be a baby, she snapped. I sat on the kitchen floor for 4 hours, holding a bag of frozen peas against a limb that was turning purple, waiting for the cartoon marathon to end. When Dad finally came home and saw my arm, he rushed me to the emergency room. The doctor was horrified. He asked why we waited so long. Mom just smiled her charming smile and said, "Oh, Morgan is such a tough cookie, she didn't complain until just now." I learned a lesson that day, my pain was an inconvenience. Kayla's comfort was a priority. Then there was my college graduation. I was the first person in our family to get a university degree. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business administration. I had worked 3 jobs to pay for it so I wouldn't have to ask them for a dime. I had sent them the date 6 months in advance. The morning of the ceremony, I called them to see if they were close. "Oh, honey," Dad said, sounding distracted. "We're not going to make it." "What?" I was standing in my cap and gown, surrounded by happy families taking photos. "Kayla got into that sorority she wanted," Dad explained. "Move-in day is today. She needs help carrying her boxes. You know she has a bad back." "But, it's my graduation," I whispered. "We'll celebrate later," Mom chimed in. "Send us a picture. We're so proud." They never celebrated later. They helped Kayla decorate her dorm room with fairy lights while I walked across the stage alone. My roommate's parents took me out for dinner because they felt sorry for me. My phone buzzed, snapping me back to the present. It was a text from Liam, my coworker and probably the only person in the world who knew the full extent of my family drama. "Liam, you walked out of the meeting looking like you saw a ghost. Or a murder. Everything okay?" I waited until I was at a red light to dictate a reply. Morgan, my parents sold my apartment to pay for Kayla's wedding. Without asking me. 3 dots appeared instantly. Then a text back. Liam, call the police. Literally right now. I stared at the message. Call the police. That was the logical reaction. That was what a normal person would do. But I wasn't dealing with normal burglars. I was dealing with Frank and Sylvia Barrett, people who believed they owned me. If I called the police now, they would play the victim. They would cry misunderstanding. They would guilt-trip me until I looked like the villain for arresting my own elderly parents. No. Police were too messy. And honestly? Too quick. I pulled into the parking garage of my building, the building that apparently belonged to Mr. Henderson now. I parked in my spot. I looked at the concrete pillar next to my car. I remembered the day I bought this place. I remembered eating instant noodles for 3 years to save the down payment. I remembered the pride I felt signing that deed. It was the only thing I had that was truly mine. I am the retirement plan, I whispered to the empty car. And Kayla is the pet. But pets don't sell the house. And retirement plans eventually stop paying out. I wasn't going to call the police. Not yet. I was going to find out exactly how they did it. And then, I was going to make sure that when the house of cards fell, it fell on them, not me. I entered my apartment and didn't even turn on the lights. I walked straight to my home office, powered on my laptop, and opened my personal finance software. The blue light of the screen illuminated my face as I navigated to a folder labeled Family Support. Most people assumed I was cold. My parents certainly did. They called me stingy because I didn't buy flashy gifts or chip in for lavish vacations. They didn't know the truth. For years ago, my father had made a disastrous investment in a friend's startup. It was a Ponzi scheme. They lost their savings. They were 6 months behind on their mortgage and facing foreclosure on the family home, the house Kayla still treated as her personal resort. I found out by accident when I saw a foreclosure notice sticking out of their mail pile during a Thanksgiving visit. I didn't confront them. I knew Dad's pride, he would deny it, then borrow money from a loan shark. So, I fixed it. I went to their bank, impersonated my mother on the phone, I knew all her security questions, after all, and set up a direct payment plan. I looked at the spreadsheet now. Date, October 1st, 2021. Amount, $2,400. Date, November 1st, 2021. Amount, $2,400. Line after line. Month after month. For 48 months. I had intercepted their mail for years. I had set up digital notifications to come to my email, not theirs. I paid the arrears. I paid the monthly mortgage. I paid the property tax. Total contribution over 4 years, $115,200. And how did they think this was happening? I had let them believe it was a banking error in their favor at first, then I just handled it. They were so financially illiterate they probably thought the bank just forgot about them. Or maybe they thought God was providing. I clicked on the most recent transaction. It was scheduled to go out tomorrow. $2,400. They sold my home, I said aloud, the words tasting like ash. To pay for a party. They were taking my past labor, this apartment, to fund Kayla's future, while I was secretly funding their present. I picked up my phone and dialed the bank's automated line. Welcome to First National Bank, the robotic voice said. For recent transactions, press 1. I navigated the menu with practiced speed. To cancel a recurring payment, press 3. I pressed 3. Please confirm you wish to cancel the payment of $2,400 to mortgage account ending in 4599. I hovered my thumb over the button. For 4 years, I had protected them. I had been the invisible safety net, catching them every time they fell, ensuring they never felt the impact of their own stupidity. I had done it because I wanted them to love me. I wanted to be the good daughter. But I wasn't the good daughter. I was the disposable one. I pressed confirm. Payment cancelled, the voice said cheerfully. I wasn't done. I logged into my parents' mortgage portal. Since the payments were stopped, the system would trigger an automatic alert. But I needed more. I navigated to the Correspondence tab. I requested a formal notice of default history. I realized something dark and heavy as I stared at the screen. My parents thought they were selling my apartment to get $150,000 cash. They had likely already spent the promise of that money on deposits for the wedding. But without my secret payments, their own house was a ticking time bomb. I sat back in my chair. The sadness was gone. It had been replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. Okay, Mom. Okay, Dad, I whispered. You want to talk about property ownership? Let's talk. The next morning, I took a sick day. I drove straight to downtown Seattle, to a glass-walled building that smelled of expensive coffee and intimidation. This was the office of Sasha, my best friend since freshman year of college and a shark of a real estate attorney. Sasha didn't hug me when I walked in. She took one look at my face, told her assistant to hold all calls, and poured me a double shot of espresso. Talk, she said. I told her everything. The call. The sale. The buyer named Henderson. Sasha's eyes narrowed behind her designer glasses. They can't sell it, Morgan. It's legally impossible unless they forged your signature. And even then, they need a notary. They said they handled the paperwork, I said, sipping the bitter coffee. Let's find out how. Sasha logged into the county clerk's database. Because the sale was pending closing, the preliminary documents were digitized and uploaded. It took her 5 minutes to find the file. Here it is, Sasha said, turning the monitor toward me. Purchase agreement. Signed by Morgan Barrett. I looked at the signature. It was a shaky, looped scrawl. That looks nothing like my signature. It doesn't have to, Sasha said. Look at the addendum. She pointed to a PDF attachment. I leaned in. It was a document titled Limited Power of Attorney. I recognized it immediately. 10 years ago, when I did a semester abroad in London, I had signed a limited power of attorney so my dad could pick up my mail and handle minor banking issues while I was overseas. I signed this a decade ago, I said, pointing at the date. But look. The date on the screen said 2025. They altered the date, Sasha said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. And look at the scope. They added real estate transactions in a different ink. It's clumsy, Morgan. A forensic document examiner would tear this apart in seconds. But to a standard notary who knows your dad? Or maybe a notary who didn't look too closely? It passed. So it's fraud, I said. Straight up fraud. It's a felony, Sasha corrected. Forgery in the first degree. We can go to the police right now. We file a report, the sale halts, your parents get arrested. Done. I stared at the document. I saw my father's handwriting, the arrogance in the way he looped the Y in attorney. He didn't even try to hide it well. He just assumed I wouldn't check. Or that I wouldn't dare challenge him. No, I said. Sasha looked at me. Morgan, they sold your house. This isn't the time for sentiment. It's not sentiment, I said. If I arrest them now, the wedding is cancelled. Everyone goes home. My parents play the martyrs who made a mistake trying to help their daughter. Kayla cries and blames me for ruining her life. I become the villain who put her elderly parents in handcuffs. So what's the plan? I want them to feel safe, I said. I want them to think they won. I want them to spend every dime of that promised money. And I want everyone to know the truth. Not just the police. Everyone. The wedding, Sasha realized. A slow smile spread across her face. You're going to nuke the wedding. I need to know everything, I said. I know about the apartment. I know about the mortgage I've been paying. But there's something else. I feel it. They were too confident on the phone. Why does Kayla think she deserves this money? Dig deeper? Sasha asked. Dig deeper, I confirmed. I need to find out exactly what story they are telling people. 2 days later, on a Saturday, I drove to my Aunt Brenda's house. Aunt Brenda was my mother's sister, a woman who loved gossip more than oxygen. She was hosting a bridal tea for Kayla. I wasn't officially invited, but I knew the code. I showed up with a box of expensive macarons. Morgan! Aunt Brenda exclaimed at the door, looking surprised. We didn't think you could make it. Your mom said you were working all weekend. I made time, I smiled, stepping inside. The living room was filled with women in floral dresses. My mother was holding court on the sofa, with Kayla sitting next to her, wearing a white sash that said bride-to-be. I slipped my phone into the breast pocket of my blazer, the camera lens just peeking out, recording audio and video. I mingled, keeping my head down. I grabbed a cup of tea and moved toward a group of neighbors my mom had known for 20 years. It's just so amazing, Mrs. Gable was saying. A wedding at the Whitmore Country Club? How did Frank manage it? Oh, it's not Frank, my mother's voice carried over the room. She was beaming, patting Kayla's hand. It's this one. Kayla has been such a blessing. I froze. I moved closer, turning my body so the phone captured my mother's face. Really? Mrs. Gable asked. But I thought she was just an assistant at that PR firm? Oh, that's just her passion project, Mom laughed. Kayla has been incredibly savvy with investments. To be honest, she's been paying our mortgage for the last 4 years. The teacup rattled in my saucer. I had to use both hands to steady it. No way, another neighbor gasped. It's true, Kayla said, looking down modestly, a blush rising on her cheeks. I mean, Mom, Dad, you guys sacrificed so much for me. It was the least I could do. I just wanted to make sure you were secure. She puts away $2,000 a month for us, Mom bragged. Every single month. Like clockwork. While Morgan, well, you know Morgan. What about Morgan? Mrs. Gable asked, glancing around. She hadn't seen me yet. Morgan is driven, Mom sighed, making the word sound like a disease. She makes good money, but she's very tight with it. She bought that apartment and just hoards her success. She never offers to help. It's sad, really. Some children have big hearts, and some have big bank accounts. So, Kayla added, her voice sweet as poison, when Morgan said she wanted to gift us her apartment to help with the wedding, we were actually shocked. I think she finally realized how selfish she's been. I felt the blood drain from my face. They weren't just stealing my property. They were rewriting my history. Kayla was taking credit for my $115,000. And they were telling people I gave them the apartment out of guilt. I watched Kayla smile that practiced, angelic smile. The same smile she had when she watched cartoons while I sat with a broken arm. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. I walked quietly to the bathroom, locked the door, and checked the recording. The audio was crystal clear. Kayla, it was the least I could do. Okay, I whispered to my reflection. You want to be the hero, Kayla? You want to be the one who pays the mortgage? Be my guest. I walked out of the bathroom, went straight to Aunt Brenda, handed her the macarons, and said, "Tell Mom I had an emergency at work. I have to go." As I left, I saw Julian, Kayla's fiancé, arriving to pick her up. He looked tired. He was a decent guy, an architect who came from a family that valued integrity above all else. His father, Harrison Whitmore, was terrifyingly strict about honesty. I paused by his car. "Hey, Morgan," Julian said. "You leaving already?" "Work calls," I lied. I looked at him. "Hey, Julian. Exciting times, huh?" The apartment sale going through and everything? He frowned. Yeah. Your parents are really relieved. Although, it's weird. What is? Kayla told me she transferred the deed to your parents last year, but the paperwork date says last week. Bureaucracy, right? Right, I said. Bureaucracy. So Kayla lied to him too. She told him the apartment was already hers/theirs. See you at the wedding, Julian, I said. It's going to be unforgettable. I had the evidence of the forgery. I had the evidence of the lies. Now I needed to secure the weapon. I met Mr. Henderson at a diner near my apartment on Monday morning. He was a man in his 60s, with kind eyes and a grandfatherly demeanor. He was eating oatmeal. Mr. Henderson? I asked. He looked up. Yes? Do I know you? I'm Morgan Barrett, I said, sliding into the booth opposite him. The owner of the apartment you're trying to buy. He smiled. Oh. The generous daughter. Your parents haven't stopped talking about you. It's a lovely unit. My wife and I are downsizing. Mr. Henderson, I said gently. I need you to look at this. I placed my driver's license on the table. Then I placed the real deed to the apartment, which I kept in a safety deposit box. Then I placed a copy of the purchase agreement his realtor had sent to the title company. Look at the signatures, I said. He put on his reading glasses. He looked at my license. He looked at the agreement. He looked up at me, his smile fading. They don't match, he said. My parents forged my signature, I said. They used a fraudulent power of attorney. I did not agree to sell my home. I am not moving. Mr. Henderson went pale. Oh my God. I've already wired the deposit to the escrow account. I know, I said. And I am so sorry you were dragged into this. If we go to the police right now, you will get your money back, eventually. But it will be a crime scene. I don't want to buy a stolen house, he stammered. I'll call my agent right now and cancel. Wait, I said. I reached out and touched his hand. I am going to stop this. But I need a favor. A huge one. What? If you pull out today, my parents will know I caught them. They will run. They will hide the money they've already spent. I need you to stay in the deal, for 10 more days. 10 days? The wedding is in 10 days, I said. I need the sale to appear pending until then. Tell your agent there's a delay with your bank. Tell them you need a week extension on the closing. Anything. Just don't let them know the deal is dead until the wedding reception. Mr. Henderson looked at me. He saw the dark circles under my eyes. He saw the desperation and the resolve. Why? He asked. Because they are using the money from your purchase to pay for a party, I said. And because my sister is taking credit for paying a mortgage that I have been paying for 4 years. I need to expose them all at once. Or they will never stop. Mr. Henderson took a sip of his coffee. He was a retired school principal, he had told me. He knew trouble when he saw it. I hate bullies, he said finally. And I hate liars. I'll tell my agent there's a glitch with my retirement fund transfer. I'll delay the closing until the Monday after the wedding. Thank you, I said, my voice shaking. You have no idea what this means. I think I do, he said. Give them hell, kid. Now that we've gathered the evidence and set the trap, things are about to get explosive. Before we head to Act 3, please take a second to hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Also, let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love seeing how far these stories travel. 3 days before the wedding, I went to my parents' house for a final family dinner. This was it. The last exit ramp. If they showed me even an ounce of humanity, I would reconsider the nuclear option. Maybe I would just cancel the sale quietly and let them deal with the debt. The house smelled of roast chicken and expensive perfume. Kayla was there, looking radiant and relaxed. She was flipping through a bridal magazine. "Hey, Morgan," she said, not looking up. "Did you pick up my dry cleaning?" "I did," I said, hanging the suit bag on the door. "Hello, Mom." "Hello, Dad." "Dinner's almost ready," Mom said, chopping vegetables. "Don't just stand there, set the table." We sat down to eat. The conversation was entirely about the wedding. The orchids, the seafood tower, the photographer who cost $5,000. I cleared my throat. "So," I said, keeping my voice small, "I've been looking at rentals like you suggested. They're really expensive, Mom. First and last month's rent, security deposit. I don't have that kind of liquid cash right now." Dad chewed his chicken, unbothered. "You'll figure it out. You have a credit card, don't you?" "I was thinking," I continued, pushing my peas around the plate. "Since you're getting all this cash from the apartment sale, maybe I could stay here? In the guest room? Just for a few months until I get back on my feet." The silence was instant. Kayla looked up, horrified. "The guest room?" she scoffed. "Morgan, that's where my bridesmaids are getting ready. And after the wedding, I'm going to use that room to store my gifts before we move into our new house. We can't have you living in there." "But I'm losing my home," I said. "To pay for your wedding." "It's not your home," Dad snapped. "We went over this. It's family property." "Please," I said, looking directly at my mother. "Mom. I'm scared. I don't want to be homeless." Mom sighed and put down her fork. She looked annoyed. "Morgan, stop trying to make this about you. This is Kayla's week. Why are you so selfish? If you're really that desperate, there's the old couch in the basement. You can sleep there. But you have to be out by 7 a.m. every day so you don't disturb us." The basement. Damp, dark, and full of spiders. That was my place. And, Kayla added, "Don't look so depressing at the wedding. Julian's family is going to be there. Try to look grateful." "Grateful," I repeated. "Yes," Kayla smiled. "Grateful that you could contribute to something so beautiful." I looked at them. I looked at the three people who were supposed to love me. There was no hesitation. No guilt. They were eating roast chicken while discussing putting me in the basement after selling my life's work. The last tiny flame of hope in my chest flickered and died. "You're right," I said, picking up my wine glass. "I should be grateful. I promise, at the wedding, I will give you exactly what you deserve." They smiled, thinking I had capitulated. They had no idea I was declaring war. The next morning, Thursday, I took the day off again. I had errands to run. First stop, the bank. I sat down with a loan officer. "I need a certified history of the mortgage payments on this account," I said, sliding the account number across the desk. "I have the authorization codes." Since I had set up the account access years ago, the officer printed it out without blinking. 48 pages. One for each month. Every single one showing the transfer from Morgan Barrett checking to Frank and Sylvia Barrett mortgage. "Is there anything else?" the officer asked. "Yes," I said. "What is the status of the account right now?" He tapped his keyboard. "Well, the autopay was cancelled on Monday. The payment is now 4 days overdue. The system automatically generated a notice of default warning letter this morning. It hasn't been mailed yet. Can you print it for me?" I asked. "I'll deliver it personally." He printed it. A stark, official document with bold red letters at the top, notice of past due payment/intent to foreclose. It wasn't a final eviction order yet, that took months, but to my parents, who were terrified of appearances, it would look like the end of the world. Second stop, the print shop. I handed the USB drive to the clerk. "I need these bank statements blown up," I said. "Make them large." Poster size. And mount them on foam boards. The clerk looked at the files. That's a lot of numbers. Presentation for work? Something like that, I said. Can you cover them in brown butcher paper? I want to unveil them. Sure thing. Third stop, the dress shop. Kayla had assigned me a dress. It was a puffy, salmon-pink monstrosity that made me look like a stomach ache. It was 2 sizes too big. To be modest, she had said. I left that dress in the dumpster behind the print shop. I walked into a high-end boutique. I found a dress. It was emerald green silk, sleek, tailored to perfection. It was the kind of dress that said, "I own this room." It cost $800. I put it on my credit card. I wasn't going as the bridesmaid. I was going as the executioner. That evening, there was a rehearsal dinner. I wasn't invited to the dinner itself, family and wedding party only, Mom had said, excluding me despite me being the sister of the bride, but I was allowed to come 4 drinks afterward. I arrived at the hotel bar. Julian was sitting alone, nursing a scotch. He looked stressed. "Hey," I said, sliding onto the stool next to him. "Morgan," he nodded. "Nice to see a sane face. Your mom is intense." "She wants everything perfect," I said. I ordered a gin and tonic. I swirled the ice in the glass. "So, Julian. I was meaning to ask. Did Kayla mention the property tax situation?" He frowned. "Property tax? No. She said the house was paid off. That she finished the mortgage payments last year." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh. Really? That's interesting." "Why?" he asked, turning to face me. "Morgan, is there something I should know?" "My dad, you know how he is about money. If there's debt." "It's probably nothing," I said, waving my hand dismissively. "Just, if she said she paid it off, she must have. Although, usually, you get a satisfaction of mortgage letter from the bank." "Did she show you that?" "No," Julian said slowly. "She just said she handled it." "I'm sure she did," I smiled. "Kayla is so resourceful with money. Just like she was with my apartment." Julian stared at me. The seed was planted. He was a smart man. He knew something didn't add up. "Morgan," he said. "If you know something." "I'll see you tomorrow, Julian," I said, finishing my drink. "Get some sleep. You're going to need it." The wedding day was perfect. The sky was a brilliant blue, the air was crisp, and the Whitmore Country Club looked like something out of a fairy tale. White roses were everywhere, thousands of them. I arrived late. Deliberately. I walked into the venue wearing my emerald green dress. Heads turned. I wasn't the frumpy, invisible sister in the corner. I was striking. Mom saw me and hissed. She marched over, her face contorted in a fake smile for the guests but her eyes deadly. "What are you wearing? Where's the bridesmaid dress?" "It didn't fit," I said calmly. "This looks better." "You are trying to upstage her," Mom whispered viciously. "Go stand in the back. Do not talk to anyone." "Don't worry, Mom," I said. "I'm saving my words for later." The ceremony began. I watched Kayla walk down the aisle. She looked beautiful, I had to admit. She looked like an angel. But I knew what was underneath the lace and silk. I watched Julian. He didn't look like a man in love. He looked like a man doing math in his head. He kept glancing at Kayla, then at her parents, then at me. The vows were exchanged. "For richer or for poorer," Kayla said. I almost laughed out loud. After the ceremony, during the cocktail hour, Dad cornered me near the bar. "I saw you talking to Henderson," Dad said, his voice low and threatening. "His agent called. Said there's a delay. Did you sabotage this?" "I didn't do anything, Dad," I said innocently. Maybe the bank is just doing its due diligence. Checking signatures and dates. You know how strict they are about fraud. Dad flinched. It closes on Monday. Don't you dare cause a scene today. If you ruin this, you are dead to me. I looked him in the eye. I've been dead to you for years, Dad. I'm just the ghost paying the bills. What is that supposed to mean? You'll find out, I said. Go have a drink. It's on the house. Or, on my house, I guess. The reception was in the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, gold-rimmed plates, a 10-piece orchestra. It was magnificent. And it cost more than I made in 2 years. I sat at the family table, but at the far end, away from the bride and groom. Under the table, resting against my leg, were 2 large foam boards covered in brown paper. Dinner was served. Filet mignon and lobster. I ate with gusto. I needed the energy. Then, the speeches began. The best man made a joke about Julian's golf game. The maid of honor cried about how sweet Kayla was. Then, Dad stood up. He held a champagne flute. He looked like the king of the world. Friends, family, Whitmores, he began. Today is the proudest day of my life. Not just because my daughter is marrying a wonderful man, but because I look around this room and I see love. And sacrifice. He paused for effect. Raising 2 daughters isn't easy, he chuckled. But Kayla has been the rock of this family. I gripped my napkin. For the last 4 years, Dad continued, Kayla has silently, selflessly, contributed to our household. She has helped us carry our burdens. She's not just a beautiful face, she's a generous soul. Applause rippled through the room. Kayla wiped a fake tear. And, Dad gestured toward me, I want to thank Morgan. She's the quiet one. But she gave the greatest gift of all. She decided to sell her apartment, her own home, to fund this beautiful evening. She said, Dad, Kayla deserves the best. Thank you, Morgan. The room erupted. People turned to me, clapping. They looked at me with pity and admiration. The sister who gave up everything. Dad beamed at me, daring me to contradict him. He thought he had me. He thought public pressure would silence me. He was wrong. I stood up. I picked up my glass. And I walked toward the microphone. Dad's smile faltered. He tried to grip the mic, but I took it from his hand firmly. Thank you, Dad, I said. My voice was steady. Amplified by the speakers, it filled the cavernous room. That was a very creative version of the truth. The room went silent. The clinking of silverware stopped. Morgan, Mom hissed from the table. Sit down. I think, I said, looking at the 200 guests, that the Whitmore family values honesty above all else. Is that right, Mr. Whitmore? I looked at Harrison Whitmore. He nodded slowly, his eyes narrowed. It is. Good, I said. Because there are 2 corrections I need to make to my father's speech. And since we are all family now, we shouldn't have secrets. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila folder. Correction number 1, I said. My father said I gave my apartment to fund this wedding. He said I decided to sell it. I opened the folder and held up the document. This is an affidavit from Mr. Henderson, the buyer. He states that he was told I was moving to Europe. He was told I was eager to sell. I didn't know about the sale until last Tuesday. Gasps. Loud, audible gasps. I didn't sign the sale documents, I continued, my voice hard. My parents forged my signature using an altered power of attorney from 10 years ago. That is a felony. It's called fraud. She's lying. Mom shrieked, standing up. She's drunk. Someone take the mic. Sit down, Sylvia, Harrison Whitmore said. His voice was not loud, but it was terrifying. Mom sat down. The sale, I said, is cancelled. Mr. Henderson withdrew his offer this morning. I am keeping my home. Which means. I looked around the lavish room. There is no $150,000 coming on Monday to pay for this party. This wedding is officially bounced. Chaos began to bubble. The catering manager, standing by the wall, looked panic-stricken. But that's not the worst part, I said. That's just the greed. Now let's talk about the lies. I turned to Kayla. She was frozen, her face as white as her dress. Correction number 2, I said. My father said Kayla has been the rock of the family. That she has been paying their mortgage for 4 years. Kayla, did you tell them that? Kayla couldn't speak. She just shook her head frantically. You did, I said. I heard you at the tea party. You took credit for saving the family home. I bent down and picked up the first foam board. I ripped off the brown paper. This, I said, holding it up, is a blow-up of my bank statement from October 2021 to present. I walked along the tables, showing it to the guests. Line item 4, I pointed. Transfer to Frank Barrett Mortgage. $2,400. Sender, Morgan Barrett. I ripped the paper off the second board. And this is the last 4 years. 48 payments. Totaling $115,000. I paid the mortgage. Me. The selfish sister. While Kayla was buying shoes and taking credit. Julian stood up. He looked at the board. He looked at the name Morgan Barrett printed 48 times. You lied, Julian whispered to Kayla. You told me you paid it. I helped. Kayla sobbed. I bought groceries sometimes. You stole my credit, I said. And you let me be the villain. I walked back to the head table. My parents were shrinking in their seats. They looked small. Old. And pathetic. I have one last gift for you, I said. I pulled the red envelope from my folder. Since you tried to sell my home to pay for a party, I figured you didn't need my help anymore. So, I stopped paying your mortgage on Monday. I dropped the envelope on my father's plate. It landed with a heavy thud. This is a notice of default from the bank. Since I stopped paying, and since you spent all your money on these flowers, you are in foreclosure. You have 30 days to vacate the house. I looked at Kayla. You wanted to be the one who pays the mortgage, Kayla? Now is your chance. It's all yours. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. It was the sound of a reputation dying. I stood there, the microphone still in my hand. I felt light. For the first time in my life, the weight was gone. I'm done, I said into the mic. I'm done being the spare part. I'm done being the bank. I'm done being the daughter you settle for. I placed the microphone gently on the table. Enjoy the lobster, I said. I hear it's very expensive. I turned to walk away. Morgan, wait. Dad yelled. You can't leave us like this. We'll lose everything. I stopped and looked back. You lost everything the moment you signed my name. I walked down the center aisle, past the rows of stunned guests. I saw Mrs. Gable, her mouth open. I saw Aunt Brenda, looking terrified. As I reached the doors, I heard Julian's voice. It wasn't a whisper anymore. The wedding is over, Julian shouted. Everybody out. Julian, no. Kayla screamed. Please. It's just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Julian's laugh was bitter. Your sister paid for the roof over your head for 4 years and you tried to steal her home? That's not a misunderstanding, Kayla. That's a character flaw. And I'm not marrying it. He took off his ring and threw it on the table. It bounced and landed in a glass of champagne. I pushed open the double doors and walked out into the cool night air. I didn't go home. I knew they would come pounding on my door. I went to Sasha's car, which was idling in the parking lot. Did you do it? Sasha asked, eyes wide. I dropped the nuke, I said, buckling my seatbelt. Drive. We drove to a dive bar 3 towns over. We ordered nachos and cheap beer. My phone blew up. 50 calls from Mom. 20 from Dad. Text messages that ranged from "how could you" to "please answer, we need money." I blocked them all. The next day, the fallout began in earnest. Mr. Henderson officially cancelled the sale. He also filed a report with the notary board about the fraudulent stamp. The notary, an old friend of my dad's, lost his license immediately. The Whitmore family pulled out completely. Harrison Whitmore was a man of his word. He cut ties with my father's business. The merger that Dad was hoping would save him? Dead. Julian annulled the marriage. Because the license hadn't been filed yet, it was easy. He kicked Kayla out of his apartment that same night. And the bills came due. The wedding venue, the caterer, the florist, they all demanded payment. My parents had paid the deposits with credit cards, expecting the house money to cover the rest. When the checks bounced, the vendor sued. My parents' house, the one I had saved for 4 years, went into full foreclosure. They couldn't make a single payment on their own. They were evicted 2 months later. It has been 3 months. I finally feel at home in my apartment. I changed the locks, installed a new security system, and bought a new couch. The sage green walls look brighter now. I heard through Aunt Brenda that my parents are living in a small 2-bedroom rental near the highway. It's noisy and damp. Mom works part-time as a greeter at a department store. Dad drives for a rideshare app. Kayla is living with them. She works 2 jobs now, one at the PR firm, where she was demoted, and one waiting tables on weekends. She has to help pay the rent. For the first time in her life, Kayla is actually contributing. I received a letter from Mom last week. It wasn't an apology. It was a guilt trip. Dear Morgan, I hope you're happy. Your sister is miserable. Your father is depressed. We are struggling to put food on the table. We made a mistake, yes, but did you have to destroy us? We are family. I burned the letter in my kitchen sink. They still didn't get it. I didn't destroy them. I just stopped saving them. The destruction was always there, waiting for the money to run out. I'm sitting on my balcony now, drinking coffee with Liam. The sun is setting over the Seattle skyline. Do you miss them? Liam asks. I think about it. I miss the idea of them. I miss the parents I wanted them to be. But I don't miss the anxiety. I don't miss the feeling of being a wallet with legs. No, I say. I don't. I am free. My bank account is growing. I'm planning a trip to Italy, a real trip, for me, not a payment for someone else's life. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder. The look on my father's face when I dropped that foreclosure notice, it was the look of a man watching his world end. It was brutal. It was cruel. So, looking at my peaceful life, I have to ask you, was I wrong to wait until the wedding to drop the bomb? Should I have warned them, or did they deserve every second of that humiliation for trying to steal my home? Thanks for listening to this story. If you enjoyed watching karma serve a cold dish of justice, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss the next drama. See you in the next video.